New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Rev Briz with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit. That means it's Friday morning. It's 7 a.m. on the Mountain Time Zone. And Rev Z and I get to talk about anything we want to talk about. So, which can sometimes be the fun part of the day and can sometimes be the challenging part of the day to figure out what we really want to talk about. We do that through the lens of New Thought. And, in the pre-show, just as we were getting ready to come live here, Z and I are sharing, there are times where it's tough to be in this business because popular culture, if you will, wants to take us away from looking within, wants to take us away from self-help, from personal empowerment, and wants us to be wrapped up in the drama, if you will, of all the other crap that's going on out there in the world. However, we're here to do our best, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had a great conversation as we always do before, because we as they say, we span the globe looking for things and ideas and incidents that allow us to kind of get behind the scenes of popular thought, if you will, and try to look at, how do we create a new thought? How do we take spiritual principles and move beyond what's being force-fed to us? And we've decided, as Briz said, that we're going to do our part, and we hope everybody else does their part. And when the mix gets just right, the cake will be ready to pull out the oven, and it'll be tasting good. But we got to mix some more ingredients right now. So we're glad you guys are here with us to mix up some of these ingredients.
This cake is not ready to go in the oven.
No.
Exactly. Hey, let's do a couple of quick shout outs. Good morning, Linda. Grateful to see you. Glad you're with us this morning. Space Cowboy, good to see you. Wayne, glad you got out of Facebook jail and are able to comment again with us. Happy Friday to Mitch Austin. Mitch is one of our newest members, if you will. We'll be bringing a forward a show and premiering a show coming in July with the network. So glad you're here today, Mitch, as well. And there's Michelle Wadley. Michelle was with us last week, folks. If you didn't get a chance to watch that episode, I really encourage you head to our YouTube channel and watch the back episodes of this program. Michelle was on last week. We had some great conversations last week as well. So yeah, and Z, in vein with what we're talking, in line with what we just started talking about here, it would be remiss of us not to send some thoughts and prayers and all right, let's get rid of the thoughts, but some serious prayers to the families of those that lost a loved one this week in this submersible story. And what we know now is today is Friday. This story has been going on since Sunday. There's been Nothing but speculation until yesterday afternoon. Yes, there have been rescue efforts, and yes, there were all kinds of things happening. But really, anybody and everybody that's in any way famous is allowed to speculate on what happened to these people. James Cameron was being interviewed on what he thought happened. Okay, he's been there. He went down in a submersible to look at the Titanic. Yeah, but the guy's he's an entertainer. I don't know where his expertise lies to determine what actually happened to these folks.
Yeah.
Yesterday afternoon, the U.S. Coast Guard did announce that they believe all souls have been lost in an implosion. And then within an hour, we find out that, the U.S. Navy kind of knew that all the way going back to Sunday. Because we got some super secret listening device spying on Russian subs that heard the implosion and reported that to the incident commanders. So this whole story all week long has been about, again, massive prayers to the people who lost a family member.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to imagine what that is like. And yet American media and my understanding is the world media made a huge deal about this all week long. But nobody's talking about the boatloads of migrants that are dying off the coast of Spain and Greece in the past week either.
Yeah.
So there's an imbalance, I believe, in what what people are reporting. I think we can do a lot more good working towards raising awareness that migrants are sinking in the Atlantic Ocean trying to get to a better life more than we would spending all of our waking time concerned about whether a handful of multimillionaires and billionaires are going to make it back to the surface.
Yeah, and I think, the unfortunate part of there's several unfortunate parts, but one of the unfortunate parts, I think, is, we definitely send our hearts out to those that were lost and their family members and friends. And there was a kid in there. One of the guys had his son. I don't know how old he was, but he looked pretty young. He looked 20 or less.
I do believe he was 19.
Yeah,
right about on spot there.
And so, the thing is, this is a tragedy, of course. But when you hear after the fact that we've spent the whole week of speculating, as you said, and interviews and resources to go look for it, if it turns out to be true that the Navy picked up what was to be the implosion of the device on Sunday, because that, from what I've read, and this stuff is just coming out, so we'll have to, and it's reported by reputable people, Wall Street Journal, and a couple other sources have given this information. And so, the thing will be, why was this withheld? And then of course now they know for sure, because they say they found a debris field some 1,600 feet down, and the Titanic, they say, was 2 miles underwater. This thing was in complete darkness and sub-freezing temperatures down there. I'm a scuba diver, and I can tell you, I have not dove nowhere near that. And I know the pressures that happens once you start going down is tremendous. And so I guess all that to say is, like, how do we begin to balance, or how do we begin to be honest? Let's just go that way with with keeping people informed. We want to be informed and we want to know what's going on in the world, but we have to get out of this sensationalism. We have to get out of this breaking news only seen here on channel ABY or whatever the damn channel is, trying to compete for people to watch when real life matters are taking place. I'm not sure what to say about all that.
I watched a popular platform network yesterday do exactly that. Breaking special news. And right. And the news was that the Coast Guard had announced they would make a statement at 3:00 Eastern time. And they spent 5 minutes telling us how, well, they normally make those announcements at 1:00 in the afternoon, but this week, but they pushed it back a couple and they spent 5 minutes speculating rather than sharing with people information that we need to know. Right. Yesterday on social media, I started to see people, anybody sharing jokes about the submarine can get off my page right now, and da-da-da. And I want to say, I was taken aback because I was like, who the hell's making jokes?
Right.
I'm not seeing any jokes. And that's because I cultivate my feed to be a place of positivity and insight and inspiration and upliftment, not a place that allows trolls and so I wasn't seeing any of these jokes, and I don't want to see any of these jokes. This is not a joking matter.
No.
People lost their lives for whether it's because of hubris, whether it's because of malpractice on the hands of the people that invented that submersible and were running that submersible. We could find a million reasons to get upset. You're running your $250,000 a person, right? So it was $1 million. Those folks were valuing their lives at $1 million, and the company was running the submarine off of a game controller, but didn't have a backup. On board in case one of them failed. And again, we don't know, and we don't even. And now I'm speculating because we don't even know that was the problem, and that was and that's what went wrong.
Right. And I mean, we've had several people successfully go down on the thing and come back. There was a news reporter on it. Did this whole story on that thing on 60 Minutes, I think, on Sunday morning on CBS. They went down and came back, and they had to wait a couple of days, and so we know that the technology worked, right? We can say whatever we want to say about this, that, or the other. Because people have gone down several times to do this, right? But it appears that the rescue or the emergency protocols were a little, lax. I mean, unless it imploded immediately, which some people are saying, there was no communication. The moment it went down, there was no, there's no SOS signal. There's no, tapping sonar or SOS or nothing. And it just amazes me that we my aunt, let me put it this way. My aunt used to always tell me, she said, measure twice, cut once, right? Make sure you know what you're doing before you start cutting, because you're going to be buying a lot of wood if you ain't measuring twice to figure out what you need in terms of the length of that friggin' wood, which is a metaphor to say, hey, you got to check and double check and have plan after plan for backup. And now, this will cause, there's going to be all kind of, I can't even imagine what the speculations are going to be now, because they'll look at the debris field and they'll go in and they'll try to figure out, something. I don't know. I don't have the math and science to deal with that. But I just think, that's a tragedy. But an even bigger tragedy in my mind is how people are using this to create conspiracy theories. I mean, I saw some crazy conspiracy theory that they're not, that they not even wasn't even on the thing. They, I'm like, what? And this is what we're living in now. So I think one of the key things that you said was we have to begin to cultivate a positive uh, social media presence in what we watch, what we share, because we know now that the AI is on the job 100 times.
True. And I want to be clear. That doesn't mean we stick our head in the sand and not pay attention to what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It means that
Mm-hmm.
we direct our work. I think that I'm sure somebody said this before Michael Beckwith said it, but I heard him say it first. All right. The news is where we know our consciousness is necessary, is where we know we need to direct our prayers.
Yeah.
The tricky part is it used to be the news that matters, and now it's the news that makes money.
Yeah.
Right. I think I would rather see us having focused on these boats of migrants that are sinking off the coast of Greece and Spain and the Canary Islands. This one, over 30 people lost. This one boat was off the Canary Islands, which is, quote, owned by Spain. Spain had spotted them and knew their location and had a ship within an hour's reach of them. But somehow it got made Morocco's problem because I guess these folks had come from Morocco. And it took Morocco 10 hours to get to them. Instead of Spain, instead of the Spanish ship being there in an hour. Now, in those 9 hours, that's malpractice. That's abuse. That's neglect, because there were resources to save human lives, and those resources were not deployed simply because of a territorial squabble, a political squabble, or it's your problem, not our problem. That, I think, should be the topic of the week. Again, nothing against the people that went down in that submersible, and their lives matter too, and let's give them but we're losing more lives to more things on a consistent basis that I think deserve more attention. A 2-year-old this week shot and killed his pregnant mother in Ohio.
What?
Because of a loose loaded gun. Details have not come out yet. I just found this story this morning. The woman actually called 911 and explained what happened, and what it appears is the toddler got into the bedside table. There was a loaded handgun in the nightstand next to the bed, and somehow ended up shooting his mother in the back, and both the mother and the baby were lost.
That's
heartbreaking. I'd rather the popular topic be talking about how we create more gun safety, how we create a consciousness and a culture of gun safety in this country, more so than speculating on why a submersible failed.
Yeah. And let's just be clear. We know that these are tough decisions and they're tough conversations, right?
Yeah. Right.
And we know that it causes all kind of friction. Let me just put it that way. But these are the conversations I believe that we have to begin to have. We cannot begin to ignore these things or just write them off, or they get the 72-hour news cycle and then they just disappear, right? We have to begin. There's this concept of think tanks, right? And I'm sure most of us have heard of think tanks. The original idea, from what I understand, of think tanks was to take these, take some intelligent, informed, dedicated people to certain ideas and put them in a room, if you will, to face these hard decisions and begin to have some conversation and generate ideas and approaches to solving these problems that people don't want to deal with, because if I say this, people are going to get mad. People, if I say this, you know, and it's like trying to talk about death, right? Let's just go there, right?
Right.
We know everyone on this planet is going to die. No questions. Even if we come up with, you know, all kind of medical treatment to extend that life, right? At some point it will expire.
Yep.
And we spend most of our time acting as if that's not the ultimate reality that we're all going to face. And so if we can take that in, we can start to talk some of these hard conversations, I believe.
Right. Exactly. And and if you put yourself in risky situations like a submersible, you are taking your own life in your own hands. And that's again, we're not blaming anybody on that submersible. I'm not here to blame the CEO. I'm not here to say you should have. I mean, there are questions. How expensive is 1,600 feet of cable? Was there a cable attached to this thing? Was there a tether line to know where they were? Was there what were the protocols? But those aren't my questions to ask. Those are the questions to ask of that company, of the leaders of that company, as they step forward and decide, does that company continue to exist? Do they continue to run tour trips to the Titanic? Do they what do they need to do to make what they're doing? And again, I think there's so much bigger, more pressing things that we can be putting our attention on. And I love what you're saying about think tanks, because it seems to me like, think tanks have rebranded themselves as political action committees. And if you don't think like we do, go get your own tank. Get out of my tank if you don't think the way we think. And so perhaps it's time for a resurgence and a new idea on how to create a think tank or that's based on New Thought philosophy.
No doubt. I think because I mean, we can pick any so-called area of news, right? We can pick sports, we can pick entertainment, we can pick finance, lifestyle, politics. If we were to excuse me, look at segments, and we can go in and find, not nitpicking, not being judgmental, we can find things that tilt the balance of society one way or the other, in terms of creating a world that works for all.
Right.
And that is what gets the majority of the headlines. And as the rich keep getting rich and the poor keep getting poor. It's a big divide now, and it's going to get the way we set it up, so that only a few get the big bucks and everybody else is chasing that dream. It gets extremely difficult to give a more balanced narrative of how life really works,
Right.
and so we continue to have the gun problems and the youth problems and suicide problems, because people are chasing things and that are being planted, if you will, that is very difficult to work, and they make it look as if there's no work needed. It's just you just do a video, put it on the internet, you're gonna be rich.
Yeah. Folks, we don't pretend that we have all the answers, but we do know that all the answers are available to us. And if we can, and I think, right, sometimes we are unwilling to have the hard conversations to find those answers and would prefer to just take the easy road. Another story that I found that hit me yesterday, today, is 3M, the chemical company, just signed a settlement for forever chemicals to support communities that have found these PFAS and other forever chemicals in their water supply. Want to take a guess at how many billions of dollars they've agreed to pay? Up to $10.3 billion over the next 10 to 15 years. Now, 3M as a corporation is agreeing to pay $10.3 billion to not answer questions, to not share the truth, to not make amends for the greed and corruption because somebody somewhere said, screw it, just do it. We'll pay for it later if they ever figure it out. And water supplies across the country and probably across the world at this point have been polluted and damaged by and other chemical companies are on the hook too. The other ones, Dow and all these other ones, are not getting off easy. And I think we're at a point where we start to realize, well, okay, this has been going on for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years or so. We're not going to change the course of this ship overnight.
No.
But we have to pave the way for that ship to change its course. We have to be the people that hold the consciousness that we can create a world that works for all.
And quite frankly, I think, we really, I made a statement the other day about, if we can begin to look at life as perfect, not that nothing goes wrong, but perfect, that everything that happens is a part of this thing called life, including birth and death, right? And that if we make, we know in New Thought and other places as well, it's no secret that there is a cause and effect relationship in the universe. If I stick my hand in the hot water without a glove or something, it's gonna burn, right? Yep. And so we've created a culture where it looks like that there's no cause and effect, there's no causal relationship. Now, we're not gonna get ethereal and go into quantum physics and mess this whole model up, because that's another level of existence. But in the moment that we have taken on this physical body, we understand cause and effect, and we are ignoring that. And so we have to become better choice makers, self-included. I mean, I know, I'm sitting here right now drinking a good strong cup of coffee. Now, and coffee is good. They've proven that it helps, a whole lot of things, but too much of it is bad, right?
Right.
And so the deal becomes, I have to be responsible and understand what my choices may provide me, and then act accordingly. And then however I act, there will be a result. And we have to begin to look at life that way, I think, whether it's being our brother's keeper, whether it's making sure I eat right, making sure I speak truthfully as I can, or whatever it is.
Right. As you're sharing, I'm reminded of a phrase that I heard. I think I've been hearing it my whole life, right? Think globally and act locally.
Yes.
And it would appear there's still a lot of folks out there that haven't gotten that message.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good news is 3M is going to be involved financially in rectifying the problems that, all right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't understand what they were doing. Maybe they didn't realize that these chemicals would propagate in our water supply and in our bodies and cause all these problems that they're causing. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they were acting in good faith, and now maybe they're acting in good faith again in this financial settlement, and they're going to be part of the solution. And we have seen experiences where organizations and corporations do step up to be part of the solution over the long term. It seems like I'd like to see more of that, I think, is what I would like.
and we have to be aware of the whole concept and term of redemption. I mean, there's that great master teacher that said something like, "He who is without, or that who is without sin, cast the first stone," if you will. We've all made bad decisions, right? But there has to be an avenue for redemption, for forgiveness, and so we have to begin to incorporate a holistic approach. Is what it we have gotten so segmented that we don't allow natural connections to be connected anymore, right? There was a time when news was connected with for lack of a better word, humility, or we treated people gracefully. Those things don't happen, and I get it. It's a tough conversation, right? Because on the other end of that, we got into this whole my humble opinion. We got into a big idea about being politically correct. And now you can hardly talk about a subject because some word is going to offend somebody, or some idea is going to offend. So the real issues never get talked about. They never get presented because I can't find the right word, or that's not going to offend this one, or offend that one. And we want to be respectful, but we don't want to have cancer, and then because cancer has become a bad word now, we start saying you got a really bad cold, or I mean, and I'm being a little facetious there, but that's what it's like. And we have to change that. We have to be able to deal in reality and address issues and solve them.
And so again, back to the point that I had made earlier, we can't hide our head in the sand about the news.
Right.
But we do have to be discerning as to what news we share and what news we continue to propagate. And you didn't see this network jumping on board, broadcasting live every hour, every time there was any breaking, every time there was a new speculation on a story. But you do see this network in prayerful consideration twice daily, plus 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time with Spanish language prayers, to raise the consciousness, raise the vibration of what we're doing. Friday nights at 5, I do the good news. If you're not aware of that program, come join us sometimes. 5 o'clock Friday nights, or on our YouTube archives. Good news stories that remind us it isn't all if it bleeds, it leads. It isn't all accusation and political infighting and arguing over silly things that aren't going to truly affect us in the years to come. We look to focus and create the environment, focus and create a vibration on the ways that the world is working, and that people are working together and supporting each other. And I'll tell you, 3 years into doing the good news now, I have found that there are far more stories about individuals supporting each other, helping each other, standing up for each other, than there are the stories that tear each other down and accuse each other. We get a lot of the latter in the prevalent and let's say more powerful networks out there these days. They still want to lead with the shock and the awe. And I think this submersible story highlights that, because the reason I believe it is so prevalent this past week is because they believe everybody would want to go down on one of these submersibles. Everybody would want to have this chance to go see the Titanic. Why? Because it's one of those great horror stories. It's one of those great leading stories that's been leading in our consciousness for decades. So who wouldn't want to go look at it? I got no desire to go look at a rusting hulk of a ship sitting on the ocean floor. but the popular media believes that that mystery is enough for everybody. And and it's not like this is the first trip made by this company or other companies to do this exact same thing. It's just the first time we've lost a vessel.
I mean, you think back to the Challenger crash of the shuttle, right? Up until then, it was stellar.
Yeah.
And then they had the one incident that was horrific. And I knew casually a couple of the people on that shuttle because I worked at Kennedy Space Center and worked on the first 4 launches of the space shuttle. And so I knew a couple of folk on there. One of them actually was my fraternity brother that passed away in that. But after that, they tightened up their ship. I mean, it was horrible. I had the teacher on it. I mean, the whole world was watching, just like on this. And but safety protocol and a whole lot of other stuff in terms of how they continued to do that until they decided, to make it more of a public sphere now with SpaceX and some of these other things. But here is where we have to be. In that tragedy came a whole lot of reform in terms of safety and protocol and being able to make a tough decision where it's like, okay, we spent a couple $1 million just to prepare for the launch, but the weather is bad. We're not going to chance it. We're going to lose that $1 million to save whatever. And that's where we have to begin to make these decisions and learn from life. I mean, and these are tough conversations now because people don't want to go down that path often.
Right. We were talking about this in the pre-show. It is so much easier to hide our head in the sand.
Yeah.
And to say, well, that doesn't really affect me. And to make jokes that, well, they're billionaires and they didn't, right? And to make light of what we either learn from this and we use this to propel human society forward, or we are destined to repeat the horrors of this historic event.
Yep. And one thing our teaching gives us an opportunity to grow into is that we understand that there's a unity throughout the universe, and that whatever happens to one happens to all. There's a vibrational thought pattern now that is in everybody's head about this and so forth. And so it gives us, I think, an opportunity to say, how do we begin to raise the consciousness level, right? To understand that these happens, especially if you're dealing with explorers, right? Because it's through these explorations. I mean, somebody did an exploration to come up with AI, or to go to the moon, or to first do a heart transplant, or all these things. There was a person who took the risk, calculated risks, and did the preparation to make the try, and then it got better and better, and now it's not a common thing to have a heart transplant, but they do them pretty regular and they're pretty successful. But it was because someone took that leap. Someone took that time to prepare, so forth. And we have to begin to look at life that way, because the biggest legacy we can leave, I believe, or one of the biggest legacies we can leave is, as the thing says, don't go where there's a path, go where there's no path, and leave a trail on how we can become a better society, how we can take care of people better, how we can make sure, everybody has the opportunity to contribute to a legacy that's going to do the number one thing, and that's life is prime. And so that's where we have to go, I believe.
And you just gave us our perfect ending for the day, Z, because New Thought, when I think about New Thought Media Network, not just me, not just what this does in my involvement, not just how I get to represent, but how so many people are getting to share this message with New Thought. We are blazing a trail. And it's often rather lonely at the front of the trail. You're the one guy out front with a machete trying to hack and figure it out, not knowing what's around, not knowing if you're going to hit a tree branch or a leopard with that next machete swing. And half the people behind you are like, yeah, keep going. We'll catch up soon. You get out there and then we'll show up. Or they're back there heckling you, yelling at you, telling you you're crazy for trying to blaze that trail.
Yeah.
But we have to be able to blaze a new trail. We have to continue to create new avenues through which we can talk about these issues and through the lens of the New Thought philosophy.
Yeah. Perfect.
There we are, folks. If you'd like to join us blazing a trail into the coming experience of human consciousness, send us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. If you don't agree with what we're saying, drop us an email. Let us know. We'll be happy to perhaps even have you on the show sometime and talk about that. Yeah. Ultimately, however, I think every one of us has to be willing to be in that energetic of being an explorer, being a trailblazer, and blazing the way forward, holding the torch of New Thought high and proud, so we can see where we're going and everyone else can see where we're going and make that decision to join us as well.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, there it is. That's another Friday episode of Ministers Talking Shit for you. We're going to get out of here. Before we do, we're going to say a quick thank you to our sponsors and our organizational donors. So please don't go away. Stay with us. Help say thank you to these folks. And we'll be back in just a second with our final thoughts. Stay tuned. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors and donors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, and all of our individual donors and sponsors. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please come be you. Yes. Thank you to everyone that's making this network possible or in the financial world. We so appreciate you. You allow all of the folks here on the network to continue to bring this message out to a global audience. And I believe that's incredibly powerful and important in today's age. So thank you for that. All right, Z, before we head off into the weekend, final thoughts?
Yeah, I had this thing. Let's begin to create some individual think tanks, right? Let's get 4, 5, 6 people, friends, and have some critical conversation with the intent of coming up with some plans, some adventurous plans on how to address certain issues or how to make statements about certain things that we feel passionate about that support the primacy of life.
Beautiful. I think mine's pretty simple. Surround yourself with the good news. Don't ignore the news that we don't like. Don't ignore the news that the traditional media feeds us. But remember, that's only part of the story. And you can get the whole story by just opening our eyes and looking beyond our social media feeds.
Yep.
Thanks for being with us, folks. We're going to get out of here for now. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.